And even before I got kind of hooked on the 3D guns, I learned about the technology of 3D printed houses, cement, these massive contraptions that draw lines of cement and make an actual house. And I thought, wow, that would be so great if they had that technology available, that building opportunity available on reservation. And then I kind of thought, well, how could I meld these ideas together? Kind of make it a for good, 3D for good, and 3D printing for quote unquote bad. So that's kind of how that storyline came to be, is that then I need to introduce, what they would be using these 3D guns for.
This is Story to Count with Jen Jumba. In conversations with writers, something magical happens, and as readers, we begin to see them as human beings and not just the name on the spine of a book. My hope is through these conversations, you learn about their craft and them as a person. You'll become like me, fiercely loyal and want to read their current book, entire backlist, any future book or any book they blurb. And when you see their name, you'll want to support them not only as the incredible storytellers, but also the thoughtful individuals you have come to know. So I'm super excited today because my guest is Deborah J. Ledford. She's an award-winning author of the Ava Lightning Dance Duran crime series featuring redemption and havoc, which we'll be talking about today, from Thomas and Mercer Amazon Publishing, and it is set in northern New Mexico, which I'm in Cleveland, New Mexico. Sounds great right about now. In her first series, the Smoky Mountain Intrigue suspense thriller series includes the titles Causing Chaos, Crescendo, Staccato, and the Hillerman Sky Award finalist and New Mexico Arizona Book Award finalist, Snare. Causing Chaos and Crescendo are both Anthony Award nominees for Best Audiobook. Part Eastern band Cherokee, Deborah has spent her summers growing up in the Great Smoky Mountains of Western North Carolina, where her Smoky Mountain Inquest book series is set. President of the independent media company, IOF Productions Ltd., and producer of the Causing Chaos and Crescendo audiobooks, as well as The Blind Eye. She's a 3-time nominee for the Pushcart Prize. Her award-winning stories appear in numerous print publications, as well as literary and mystery anthologies. She's also a former Arizona State adjunct professor for the Virginia G. Piper Center for Creative Writing. Before her career as a writer, she worked for over a decade as a professional scenic artist for motion pictures, industrial films, national commercials, and live theater. And due to her work on industrial films for clients such as Intel and Motorola, Deborah earned security clearance through the U.S. government. Highest acclaim is for her scenic artistry on the Coen brothers film, Raising Arizona. Her professional organizations are too numerous to name, but I'll highlight the International Thriller Writers Association, Sisters in Crime, Crime Writers of Color, Authors Guild Mystery Writers of America, and she's the past president of Sisters in Crime Desert Sleuth Arizona chapter. At the beginning of this year, Deborah was named as the City of Glendale Writer in Residence. So all of you in the Glendale area are so fortunate to have her as a mentor. Not only is Deborah a skilled storyteller, but she's also incredibly kind and encouraging. We've worked together on a few very, very minor things, such as an introduction. So those of you who are going to develop stories with her are in for a treat. Deborah lives in Phoenix, Arizona, with her extremely patient husband and their awesome husky. So I'm so glad you're joining me today to talk about Havoc.
Thank you, Jen. That was very nice. That was really, really kind of you. And I just adore you. I've listened to all your podcasts, and gosh, this is a real honor and a pleasure.
Well, I appreciate it. I met you a couple years ago at BoucherCon. Yes. We were on a speaking panel for banned books.
Banned books.
And I was immediately drawn to you, and the particular banned book that you highlighted was Louise Erdrich, and can't go wrong with her ever.
Right. I told a story within the book about how the world was created, and so that's what as far as the Ojibwe tribe is concerned.
Yeah. The thing is, people read books for so many reasons, right? We read to learn, Sometimes we read just because we want a good story. Sometimes we read to escape. There's numerous studies that show people who read books tend to be more empathetic because you're seeing different perspectives and learning about how different people have experienced life. And I think that only makes you
Absolutely.
a better and, cooler person, and certainly much more conversant at cocktail parties, right? So let's talk a little bit about Havoc. The first book was Redemption, featured this incredible character who I just love, Ava Lightning Dance. And so this book is Havoc. This is the second one, follows up, and multiple storylines in this book, multiple things happening. It opens with a bank robbery and it, continues on. There's a tragedy. We learned this early on, so this is not a spoiler to know that there was a field trip and a young boy was shot and killed because he appeared to pull a gun. We learn early on it was not a real gun. It was a 3D printed gun. But you cannot tell the difference when you're faced with danger. Can you talk a little bit about where the idea came for using 3D technology in the not so great way?
I mean, I kept hearing about it, and my husband is an engineer, and he actually was able to go online and get the program to print one. So he printed me one, and it looks exactly like a Glock, that is standard in a lot of police departments, as a duty weapon for officers. I mean, I could not tell the difference. And so I think that's what kind of prompted the backstory, is that, okay, I want something exciting to happen. Let's do something that's relevant to now. And even before I got kind of hooked on the 3D guns, I learned about the technology of 3D printed houses. Cement, these massive contraptions that that draw lines of cement and make an actual house. And I thought, wow, that would be so great if they had that technology available, that building opportunity available on reservations, because hut houses are really, really ugly. And
absolutely.
And, not real substantial. So I kind of thought, well, how could I meld these ideas together? Kind of make it a for good, 3D printing for good, and 3D printing for quote unquote bad. So that's kind of how that storyline came to be, is that then I need to introduce, what they would be using these 3D guns for.
Right. As a librarian, we have maker spaces in libraries. And so we have 3D printers, but they are normally used to make, fun things or replacement pieces. You have a chair that, a lawn chair that broke, but it needs this little piece. They don't sell it. So you just go in and print it. It boggles my mind. My brain can't work in terms of 3D design, but I was fascinated when I was reading your book is to see the opportunities when this is done to scale, to be able to build homes. I think that's one of the things that we're losing today is that craftsmanship, of being able to do that type of work to build houses, plumbers, electricians, the trades are suffering. So if you have an opportunity to kind of complement where there might be a bit of a gap, what a great way to use the technology that's available.
And save a lot of trees.
That goes kind of without saying. So have somebody who has robbed a bank they have not identified. You have a young boy who was killed by this gun. And you bring back these incredible characters, Ava and Kai. Yeah. Kai's also a terrific character. He's a teenager at this point. He is in his first year of college, and he has this affinity for the fauna and flora in his particular area on the res to identify the particular plants that are specific to that area that are unique, because part of the Pueblo culture is that those are used as medicine.
Correct.
In many cases. It's interesting to see him grow and develop in the barn instead of the horse being in a stall. There's a stall reserved for him with a gigantic, almost aquarium tank.
Aquarium,
where he is growing these things and studying these things to make sure that they are preserved to a certain extent.
Right. to do his research on how we can, make them more proliferate and available for healing of his culture back in the old days.
Well, I think he's a great character. And I think one of the things that I like so much about these stories is that you're weaving the Native American traditions in with modern day, partly because you have things set on the reservation, and then there's a crime that happens outside the res, and the tension that exists between federal agencies and tribal police. But to see the traditions and the things woven in, Kai wears a medicine bag. Will you talk a little bit more about that tradition?
Right. So that there are certain cultures certain tribes that really rely on medicine bags, and a lot, particularly the Southwest tribes, like the Navajos, they'll carry corn pollen in their medicine bag. So anytime there's, and that's their protection and so forth and so on. And for the Taos Pueblo, just speaking specifically, because that's where most of my research comes from for those books, is they would carry something in them that means something to them. It's like a grounding. It's whether it's a bit of land, a little bit of sand from a particular area, or for Kai it would be different leaves from the
Mm-hmm.
protection of the plants that he wants to focus on and so forth. So, or a sprinkling of beads from from an ancient pair of moccasins that grandma beaded for them. So it's grounding, it's protection, it's a talisman, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And they wear them all
It's
the time.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing to think about, being able to ground yourself in a way that
Right.
sometimes is a bit more tangible than our thoughts.
Right.
Sometimes our
Yeah.
thoughts kind of
Right.
run
And
amok.
it's in a little, very simple, generally a very simple leather pouch, with
Hmm.
a leather string around their neck, and they just put it close to their heart every day.
Such a thoughtful gesture, and tradition. We talked a little bit about, the story opening with, a young boy who was killed while on a field trip. And I'm a sucker for language, and for characters and story and setting. And you seem to accomplish all of that in this book. It's in a great setting. There's fantastic characters and the language. And it's just something that struck me is thinking about Cruz. He's got to deliver news to the parents of the young boy who was killed.
Hmm.
And the lines that you use are, he stayed silent for a beat, searching for the proper words to release to the universe that would forever alter the paths of those who received them. Words that would need to be said over and over until the entire community received the heartbreak.
Hmm.
Absolutely stunning in terms of language, because that's
And
not an
it's
easy thing
yeah,
to
and it's
deliver
so
that
true. I
news.
mean, I hope that it's that just to give a little more reasoning, a little bit of remembrance that it's not only about that family, it's their only child who has perished, but also, a very tight knit community that is also going to have to go through it.
And I think that's the other thing you capture really well is how close they are as a community, the
Hmm.
Pueblo tribe, that they watch out for one another. And that's part of the reason both Ava and Cruz are working in as tribal police officers.
Right.
Ava, because she says, it's an opportunity for her to kind of look out for her people.
Hmm.
And Cruz had this incredible background, did a bunch of different things. And then he realized that this is where I'm meant to be. These are the people I want to protect. This is the land I want to protect. And
Right.
that sense of community, and how everybody in the community comes out to support the family who suffered this horrific tragedy. I think it's unlike other communities. We like to think in the towns where we are that the towns do show up, and in many ways they do, but it's different.
It is.
They know the names of each other. They know each other and have had interactions most of their lives
Right.
being part of the tribe.
And it's, and so the Taos Pueblo, the reservation where the two ancient structures are over 1,100 years old, they have tours. So, I mean, they really rely on tourist money for, to keep their governments going. the reservation is 110,000 acres, but there's really only a couple thousand community members that live on the reservation. So they really rely on the tourists. But whenever there is a death, whenever a pueblo passes, they close it. They close it for the entire day. No tourists are allowed. They have their very private ceremonies that last an entire, 24 hours. And of course, I'm not Taos Pueblo. I'm Cherokee. I'm Eastern Band Cherokee. So I would never be privy to the actual ceremony. But my contact that I've worked with for, since 2006, he'd walked me through everything, told me absolutely everything. But of course, I don't present everything because it's nobody's business.
Right.
I don't even present as much as he said is allowable, right?
Okay.
But it gives an idea of how much this member of the community was cherished, and that the community goes through this ceremony every single time and has, for a very, very long, 1,000 years. So traditions that are carried on and continue. I thought that was really important to let people know that when natives, even if it's only merely this particular tribe, when they pass, they don't really pass. They continue on, and people will remember the celebration because it's a celebration of life. Once they have said goodbye, there's a feast and dancing and celebration. So,
which is kind of the opposite of what others do. I mean,
this
there's a period of mourning and the funeral, and they want to say celebration of life. Right. I appreciate the insight. I'm sure readers appreciate the insight and the glimpse into that. So you said you've been working with your contact 20 years now, right? It's 2026.
Yeah. Him and his family.
How did you meet this person, or did you just call up and, because you're a writer and you're doing research? How does that process work?
It started when I was coming up with ideas for book 2 of my previous series. So the book is Snare, and the backstory is of an up and coming rock star who has never performed live before. So she's kind of starting it out. There's going to be a huge Indian festival, and this was going to be her tryout. Was in Bryson City, North Carolina, this little venue, which is where Stephen Hawke, the lead of Snare, lives and protects his county. And she's so I had to come up with a tribe. I had to come up with, because his love interest is Eastern Band Cherokee, and she later becomes Enola Walela is her name, and she becomes the lead in the 3rd and 4th book. But so I needed to have another tribe, conflicting, because of course there's going to be, the jealousy involved. So I started doing research. Well, what tribe could I use? I knew I wasn't going to use Navajo because, of course, that's been used so many times. That's been covered. And I thought, well, I'm from Albuquerque. Let's see what we've got over, one state over from me. And so I started doing research, and then I was captivated by the photographs of the ancient North and South house. And it's like, oh, I want to go there. Found out that they were open to tourists. So my husband and I did a little road trip. And then while I was there, I did the tour, young kids giving the tour and giving very interesting insights. It's like, okay, this is definitely the place. And that same trip, we found out that there were horse riding tours around the reservations. I'm like, oh, let's do that. And that's where I met Floyd Mountain Walking Cane Gomez, and got talking, and I thought, well, would you be interested in being kind of an advisor? And yes, of course. Then I met his wife, and then 3 children, their aunties, uncles, cousins. So, he was very kind to open his arms, to really all of them, to allow me into their community. And stories, oh my, the stories they told. It's like, oh, can I use that? That sounds interesting. Nope, you can't. You can't use that. Can I use that one? Nope, can't use that. To the point where it's like, well, why are you telling me? if I can,
Yes.
stuff. And
Right.
and he said, and he gifted me with the words, because we trust you. So it was like, okay, I've got to be really, really good and be as absolutely respectful as I possibly can for these people in the community and the characters that I conjure strictly from my imagination. Nobody's based on anyone I've met, but the locations are absolutely true and real. And
Right.
I hope that I have kind of embodied all of the Taos Pueblo people that I have that have so graciously spent time with me.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about Rockstar and Snare and kind of looking at that tribe and where the tension exists. Also in this book would be a former rock star with Paloma.
She was a
Um,
hoop dancer.
yes, right.
Hoop
I
dancer,
would say
yeah.
rock
Oh,
star in
oh,
the
yeah, right, sure.
yeah,
Now I
not
get it.
like yeah, but in
You're a
terms
lot
of the
quicker than
fact,
me.
but in terms of incredibly accomplished,
Right.
award-winning hoop dancer to carry on that tradition, and we see her and meet her in your first book, Redemption, where she survives essentially a serial killer and was recovering from that.
Mhm.
And she's
Right.
Ava's best friend. They've known each other for a long, long time. And hoop dancing is a particular part of the tradition and a beautiful way of expression. I, of course, look it up to kind of see some examples and
Mhm.
just blown away. So having her be able to participate in that struggle to recover, to be able to do so, just talks about the grit and the tenacity,
Right.
and
And
how
also
hard it is
she
to recover.
right. And not only recovering from her horrific injury that ended her career and took her husband and Kai's father
Mm-hmm.
away, but also um, recovering from drug addiction because, once the paid meds were no longer available, she went the next step over and over. And that's, as you mentioned, redemption. That's her origin story. So yeah, it's I really, really love Paloma because she's a she's a survivor. I would call Ava a fighter warrior.
Mm-hmm.
Paloma is a survivor, you know, um, who takes it a step at a time, who realizes she will never be a hoop dancer again to that level.
Right.
And now her mission is to stay alive for her son, essentially. So her journey is a much lower key one of
But
survival and carrying
but
on.
it's still a daily fight for her.
Absolutely, yeah,
And a lot of times that's how addiction starts. It's
yeah,
an innocent thing that you're on pain medicine to recover
that's
from
right,
an injury, and next thing you know,
right.
you need more of it.
Buying heroin from the white man.
But the other thing I saw in this book is the fact that they live on the reservation and on the property, which is immense, that she's on. There's also a horse stable and equine therapy, for lack of a better word, being able to take care of the horse, being able to ride the horse. I can't even imagine what you experienced being able to, go on a guided horse ride through the place where this book, takes place.
Right,
Really
right. It
special.
was spectacular.
I think the other thing too, you mentioned a little bit about the stories that Floyd told you, but also the stories of Native Americans and how they're passed down a lot of times orally.
Taos Pueblo language is not written down. It's strictly an oral, orated language. Um, so there, and it's what's really interesting. Of course, Floyd's father, fluent, and mother,
Mm-hmm.
or grandparents from the father's side, generationally they speak
Right.
Tiwa. Tiwa is the language. Floyd, however, never did learn it except for the words while at home. But his children, all of his children, did learn it. So, it's a governmental thing. What are we going to be offering our children based on, their, traditions or language? So that was a governmental decision. It was not a tribe decision. That was a government decision, not to teach the language um, for Floyd's generation of children, which is horrifying.
Do you think now, I mean, with the technology that we have today, is it something that And I don't even know. I mean, there are ways to preserve things, but then the question becomes, is it something that you all want to preserve that way? Or is it
Right.
something that,
I
should be
don't, I mean,
continued?
I know that there are some children's stories, children's books that have been translated into Tiwa.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as far as the storytelling itself, I don't know. I mean, that's a really good question. I'm not really privy to that particular part of, or actually, I just never thought to ask that amazing question. But
It just, you want to be able to preserve things,
I
and
know,
now
right?
we have the technology to do so.
Yeah, and native languages are dying. I mean, there are
Right.
a lot of languages that, there may be, some small reservations. There may be one elder left, and if the youngers are not paying attention, that language is going to be gone for that entire community.
Right. Languages as well as the stories, and the stories
Right,
that's history,
right,
so
exactly.
it's more than just the language. It's the history of
Right.
what happened and how things happened. And you talk a little bit about influencing with tradition, right, for the Taos Pueblo tribe in this particular book. And talk about natives huddled together, all dressed in traditional garb, draped in colorful shawls of high-ranking tribal members, hair wound in tight braids that trailed down their chests, heads bowed. And I think the great thing about books and you all as writers is taking words and being able to construct an image in our head. I think that's a gift. So first of all, thank you for that gift.
Thank you.
To be able to bring that to life. I heard something the other day. It's Mo brings plenty.
Mm.
He's starred on some TV shows where he's, the Native American, but he talks about braids and the significance of braids.
Uh-huh. Well, I know versions of them. What did Mo say about
He
it?
said it was the closest thing, like the female is the closest thing to God, and
Mm-hmm.
females have braids, and
Right.
so this is their way of honoring the females in their particular tribe.
Right, and it also is of strength. That's that the hair is very, very important as far as, that's one of the main things when, unfortunately, the children were taken from their homes and enrolled in the Indian schools. The first thing to go was their hair because they know the importance of what the hair means. And yes, and the long flowing hair, it is in honor of the maternal side of the families and so forth. But yeah, hair is important, to the culture. And I mean, Floyd, he's got really long hair, and then he braids it, and then he puts it in a bun, and he
Mm-hmm.
always wears a cap. So it's almost like that is his protection, but it's also private. You know, it's like this is for me. This is what I need in order to be grounded as a human, as an individual walking this earth.
Being that you're part Cherokee, what tradition do you honor to keep yourself grounded?
Well, I no longer have my hair because I'm a breast cancer survivor, and that's one of the first things that goes when you're going through chemo. Yeah, it's quite humbling and quite a lot humiliating. But that was the most I once thought, visually that's the most native thing about me because I had the long flowing hair and I would
Mm-hmm.
braid it, when it was wet, so it was nice and wavy, and I was quite vain about my hair, and that's probably not a great thing. But anyway, now I can only have the very short gray hair because it will never be long again. So, I can't say that I certainly did ground me back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, however, now that I've aged and I'm older, um, I don't need that anymore. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
My grounding really comes from within, really. And just the constant reminder of the battles that I've overcome, and the judgments and the you know believe, first and foremost, believing in myself and that I am worthy, because there's a lot of unworthy mojo out there, juju that comes our way.
Yes.
And it's like I have earned a right to sit at the table. So
Heck yeah.
I kind of have
I
to
say
walk
head at
in
the
that.
table.
Sit next to me at the table.
Yeah, exactly. You talked a little bit earlier about the tribes, Taos Pueblo in particular, relies on tourism, right, to help support their government. And so there's a scene in this book where you capture that. Ava and Kai go out to talk to somebody who's got a blanket down and like what sounds like absolutely stunning work, silver and turquoise and gorgeous beads and woven things, and they go over to talk and they leave Kai in charge, and Kai's like, wait, I'm gonna wheel and deal, I'm gonna do this. And a family comes by, and we talked about Nathan being the young boy who was shot and killed, and he was known as Little Bear. That was his, I guess, Native American.
His native name.
Its native name. And so there's a great scene that you capture with Kai and a group of tourists, a family that are actually from Germany. Do you want to share that story?
I think it's it's kind of the epitome of the tourists that visit the Pueblo when they, usually specifically on the weekends. There are some of the homes are open. So on the bottom floor of the shops, and then they live, above the shops. This is on the Pueblo itself. These are in the traditional houses. So there are gift shops down below where all of the handcrafted treasures are. And then there are other just singular people that do. They put out their wares on the ground, and they do the same thing in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So there are all kinds of tribal members that line up against the wall on the square, and so the tourists go by, and that's where I came up with the German family idea. Is in Santa Fe. It's like, oh, okay. Look at this, and so yeah, Kai just kind of takes over, saying, hey, I'm gonna make some scratch for my cousin here,
right?
And so essentially, Ava is talking privately to the craftsman over, a few steps away, and they're kind of doing this visual back and forth where they're kind of negotiating what a price would be. And then finally it was, hey, you better give us, you better buy this now, lady, if you want this, because she's going to buy all of it for cash. And then that's what causes the sale. So
yeah. It's also touching because at one point, Shadow, who is Kai's dog, who we met in the first story, who is terrific, is sitting there. And the little girl, who's the tourist, wants to pet him. And he's a working dog. So there's, on his body, basically don't pet type of thing, don't touch. Right. The family says to her, Bunshin, don't do that. And they buy a bunch of things because they feel a little bit of pressure that the lady over there is going to buy everything. And then Kai asks, what does Bunshin mean? And they say Little Bear. So connecting those little experiences in life that they're more than a coincidence, that it's a gesture almost from Nathan, because Nathan and Kai were great friends. Even though there was a significant age difference, it was like a little brother, big brother type of relationship. And Kai was teaching Nathan about the fauna and the flora and the things that are growing. And so to get that little gift after he had passed, that's touching.
I know. That kind of teared me up a little bit when you were talking about that, because that's something. And that came to me immediately. Is like that wasn't even a third draft drop in. That was, I need to find a little girl's name that means Little Bear, and or what she's a nickname or something, so that it's Kai knows that he's still on the right path. That was so important. That Kai is the one who's actually interacting with this young child who is the same age as Little Bear when he passed.
Yeah, I think that all of us in life kind of go through things and sometimes wonder, are we on the right path? And then there's little signs that you're like, okay, yes, I am.
I'm good.
Yes, exactly. So you just mentioned like it wasn't a third draft drop in. Can I ask, like, how many drafts do you write?
Well, this one, both of these books I had to write them so fast. I mean, they were both sold on proposals. So it was a 5-page outline and 5 chapters. And that doesn't happen very much anymore.
Okay.
But my publisher at the time, Thomas and Mercer, they were looking for, you know, at that time there was a hashtag own voice. So cultures writing about same cultures. So
Mm-hmm.
natives writing about natives. And so I had a really, really short window of time. So, and it just really does depend on the book, really. Um, so with Redemption and Havoc, I was doing, especially with Redemption, it was like 2,000 words a day. So it was like, keep your head down, write the story, print it out, read it, figure out what you can flesh in.
Okay.
Um, but I was so, and I think really, if you are so, and I can only speak for myself, but I was so completely focused on what I needed to do, focusing on the story that the publisher bought, right? The
Mm-hmm.
idea that the publisher bought. So I think I was just so involved and so into it that, I mean, it was like, you talk about actors, completely embedding themselves in a character before they are able to perform it. It was very much like that, I think. And never an experience in any of my other books or even my short stories that I've ever written. It's like it was a full immersion. Everything
Yeah.
took a back seat for 30 days until I got my first draft done.
Wait,
But
30,
even
30 days to draft
90,
the book?
90 days, 90
Okay.
days for the first draft. That's all I had. I had 3 months.
Well,
So, yeah, and that was the submission draft to the publisher, to my acquiring editor. Um, so, fortunately, I am a professional developmental editor, so I'm a little bit beyond other writers in that I immediately will know what to look for. I got to trim this down. This is too much information. This is too much research. Pare it down. Boom. I have my own little editor screaming at me to where I at least am able to divert my attention, let's say.
okay.
Um, but it was probably 3 separate drafts. So I did the first draft straight through, then the read through, and then it's like, okay, I need to develop these characters a little bit more. The third draft is generally sensory for me, adding the sensory and trying to completely visualize, the locations. But I started as a screenwriter, and I'm very fortunate that I started as a screenwriter because it's like, you have to be very, very concise. It's only what the camera sees. There's no
Right.
thoughts, there's no sensory, it's just boom, boom, boom. You're working on dialogue and blocking, sometimes not even blocking, and
Okay.
location. So I already knew bare bones, and that's what takes me a little bit longer is the sensory type of situation. But I always will highlight, I'll write in the first draft, I'll write what I'm going to write
Okay.
as a presentation, as a template, for instance. And then I will do like a fuchsia highlight, and I know that I need a sensory here, or I'll do a light blue highlight, and I know I need location work there, or I'll do a yellow highlight, and I need character work there. So even as I'm working, the next read through, I know I need to pay attention here.
Okay. Will you read it through and just pay attention to the fuchsia highlights first to get the sensory, and then skim through it
Yeah,
again to get the blue for the location?
I generally fix it all at once. For these two,
Okay.
I fixed it all at
So
once
you can
because of the
turn your
time
brain
frame.
in that same general area, and
Well,
then the
what's
next
great is
page.
that, if I work on chapter by chapter when I'm doing that,
Okay.
right? So I've already got the time frame, and my books all of them take place over like 2.5, 3 days max. So,
Right.
so I'm very, very consistent. That's where Excel spreadsheet saves me. I'm so anal with my Excel spreadsheet. It's like, because it's multiple points of view.
Right.
Um, and so I know what needs to happen. I know, this needs 3 things need to happen before, what prompted chapter 4, I need to wrap up in chapter 8,
Right.
So that's I'm able to focus chapter by chapter. When I'm in the second draft, I just move straight from chapter 1 to chapter 78 or whatever.
I think it's a terrific skill. You talked about being totally focused and immersed. I would argue that as a reader, when I'm reading one of your books, I am completely immersed in that place.
That's the highest compliment you can give.
Oh, well,
Thank you.
yeah. And it takes me a lot less than 90 days to read one of your books. I'll just say it's almost not fair.
I know, right?
But I think about that immersion. And then the other thing I think is, they talk about pacing and the fact that you tell it from multiple points of view. Not only is it terrific to see the same thing from different perspectives, but also it's what propels me forward, because that character's chapter almost ends on a cliffhanger. Yep. And then you go to the next character. So I want to read that. So it is a very propulsive read in terms of pacing.
Yeah, that's what we, as thriller writers, that's what we want. We want a hook that makes you keep reading, because we want you to stay up till 3:00 in the morning, Jen.
Yeah, exactly. I think you all need to start, in addition to selling books, there need to be special edition books that come with like a work excuse. Like, please excuse Jen from work today. She has a book to read. It's her way of grounding, we'll say. So I think it's a terrific thing that you do.
It also, you were mentioning the different characters and so forth. And the reason why these two series, both of the series, I needed to do that, for Redemption and Havoc, like I said, the land is 110,000 acres. That's a lot of driving for Ava and for Cruz, and so it necessitated me going to different point of view characters just to, because
so we're not reading the chapter where Ava's driving for 90 minutes.
It would be very boring, and it also would be a 3-month-long journey. So
yes. True. The other thing that you bring up that I wasn't aware of the name for is called a signature aspect. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So that's for serial killers. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or criminals.
Or criminals. Yes. Right. Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't have to be a serial killer, but
typically associated with a serial killer.
Right. So it's there may be. So for the guns, this is specifically about the 3D guns. Unfortunately, the maker of these guns, he's a teacher. However, he thinks he's doing this for the good, because he's building community. They're only using these guns for target practice and so forth and so on. He's got the blinders on. He's making his own excuses that it's okay to do this. And he's very proud of them, because he's also, his sideline is designing these 3D houses. And so he claims the little models that he's making that he knows is these are the models of the houses that are going to be full sized as soon as I get the funding in order to start this company and buy the machinery. And so he does his signature, and which is actually the face of a fox. So that's kind of the stamp that he uses. And then he becomes so proud of how his guns are turning out that he then implements the same fox. So the kind of the greed starts to raise its very unfortunate head as far as he's concerned, because now he's going to be tied to a very unfortunate incident and situations that are going to take him down.
Right. Yeah, criminals aren't always the brightest. It's the criminal that goes to the bank and writes on the back of their deposit slip to empty the drawer.
Exactly.
So I'm just saying, one of the great things about series, and I don't know if this is like this for you as a writer, but as a reader, getting to know the characters and getting to see the character arcs over the course of the series. And all of them, I would argue, are struggling. Big struggles, little struggles. Kai in particular, struggled with the fact that, his mom was taken. His mom had, problems with drug addiction, and he's still kind of struggling with that he thought she was gone. She's back. Now Nathan Little Bear has tragically passed away. And so he really kind of looks up to Santiago, just his uncle.
True.
Just the advice from elders, which is always an important thing. But Santiago says to Kai, be like me, but don't be me. Too lonely. For now, surround yourself with good people and keep them close.
Because Santiago, he's the head of the tribal council. He's the answer man. So everyone always wants something from him, and he's always has to say no. He's the no man. He's kind of like how I became after. I'm not saying he's me. Santiago's not me, but after getting going through my breast cancer and the treatments and so forth and so on, I know that's why I got sick. I was giving too much of myself away. That's just all there was to it. So my go-to, even to this day, is no, because
it's hard to do,
and it's almost immediate. It's no, because I can come back from a no. I cannot come back from a yes, because my yes is I absolutely will do this for you, with you, whatever.
Yeah, but once you're committed, you honor your word.
Because I honor my word. So
yeah,
but I didn't say no to you on this interview because I love you.
Oh, well, thank you. Likewise. Santiago talks about why he got involved in politics, because people off the res don't understand us. And he believed in defending our people's rights, battling injustices, and being a peacemaker when I can. Right. So he may say no a lot, but he is purposeful in his intention for being involved in politics.
Right. He's the yes man for the politics. I mean, he's the one who goes to Washington, to D.C. to speak for his people, along with other tribes, trying to get more, finances and medical help. So many people figure, oh, they've got casino money, they're rich, the government takes care of them, they've got great health care, and that is absolutely 100% not true. I mean, there are people living on the Navajo reservation who have never had running water, who have had to, carry water, into their hogans, sometimes, almost a mile away from water. I mean, it is not true. The government does not take care of the originators of the people of this land, and it's very unfortunate that more people don't realize that. I think that if they did know, they might be a little more giving and forgiving.
Absolutely.
And casino money, I mean, God, the casino money is as much oh my gosh, I could go on and on about casino money, because the natives don't own those casinos. They don't know how much money is being brought in. They are given a very meager percentage, and that money goes to the tribal council, and it's up to tribal councils to decide who gets that money. So, and tribal councils generally change, every year, every couple of years. So, there's a lot going on, a lot of money made, but not benefiting where those casinos actually are housed on tribal land.
Speaking to your point of if people knew, they would be more giving, do you ever envision that somehow making its way as a storyline?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it's kind of, it would, I don't know, because it would mean opening up a little bit too much culture, too much of, ingrained culture to outsiders.
Right.
And that is what has been the disservice from day one, is saying, hey, we need this help. Will you help us? And it's the receivers of this, oh, we want to help, but we're going to need this first. Do you see what I mean? So,
gotcha.
So there is that closed culture that's still very, very protective. We don't want to ask for help. We don't. And is it, I guess, I don't know if it's that I don't think it's that natives, expect the assistance, I mean, some of the Navajos, that, that's what they have chosen to live like they live on the land. They don't want electricity, they're fine with generators. even on the Taos Pueblo, in the traditional houses, it wasn't that long ago where they wouldn't even allow hot plates or generators of any kind. They got the water from the stream that runs between the two houses, and and those fires and so forth. It's it some cultures, they want to keep the way that they were, and I say let whatever tribes do what they want to do.
Oh, without a
And
doubt.
yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
Cruz even says that at the end of this book. Is like, why do all the white people want to help us?
right.
And so I understand that. Sometimes I just think messaging in the form of a story
Mm-hmm.
is subtle enough to
Mm-hmm.
compel people to, I don't know, act differently, choose differently, but
Right.
at the same time, it shouldn't be something that you should be asked to do. I was just kind of curious.
It's more about respect more as much as anything else. It's like, I get email. I don't know. I mean, if this is appropriate, but I get emails often from, and I will say, Caucasian writers who have never done research, but they want to make their character, the lead character. How do I present this? And I'm thinking, please don't. How about just please don't? Make them a secondary character. If if you don't have contacts to at least one Native American from a tribe somewhere in the nation, please don't do that.
Right.
We need the opportunity to tell these stories. We natives need and there are so many up and coming and we're authors. I mean, Lori Dove, her debut came out
Oh yeah.
last year. Ask of the Deer Woman, Vanessa Lilly, who writes a fantastic series. I mean, we have so many, and Nick Medina. Oh my gosh, he's magical.
David, who did Winter Counts, he's coming out with a new book next year.
Yes,
or this year,
yeah.
I should say.
Yeah, and I mean, there are so many Native authors that have so much to say, and let us say it. Let us have our story.
Absolutely.
Secondary characters, that's a little different. I mean, because my lead character is an African American sheriff in the first two books. I never even thought, oh, I have to be thinking about this. Is this, you know, Stephen Hawke came to me as a black gentleman, the only black man, serving on the as a deputy for a little tiny county in North Carolina. It's still a fantasy. It will never happen, probably.
Right.
But that's the way he came to me.
Do your characters, if they come to you, do they stay with you? Like, does Cruz and Avis and Kai kind of still hang out with you, even though
they do.
The book is done?
Yeah, I mean, I still think about adventures of what trouble I can get them in. You know what I mean?
This is good. Very good. Can you talk a little bit about what you're working on now?
Well, I have some really exciting news, Jen.
Really?
And I really do.
It's like I need a breaking news bit.
It is. Yes, you need the red banner. If this was a visual,
yes, breaking news.
If this was a YouTube, there'd be a breaking news. So I finished a book last year, a novel. It's different than my other series. This is strictly a one point of view character. Takes place in Oregon, on the coastal area, about 30 miles west of Salem, Oregon. So you get that idea. It's a northwestern area, and this title is Shadowcast. And I just got I didn't just get it, but it was recently announced, so I can talk about it now. It's a new 2-book deal with Mysterious Press.
Congratulations!
Thank you. Louisa Cruz Smith is my new editor, and Shadowcast is a traditional mystery about a mixed heritage cop with conflicting loyalties who gets tangled up in a web of deceit involving a clandestine winery, stolen water rights, greed, and murder, creating a deadly concoction for a small Oregon reservation and its people.
And When can we expect to read this amazing story?
So next year,
Okay.
in the let's see, so it'll be available in the fall of 27, so probably around February, March of 27. So not too much longer to wait. I'm
Oh,
so excited to work with Louisa. I just can't wait.
I'm so excited for you that you're continuing to write amazing stories. You had me at winery, but no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You had me that the fact that your name is on the book. So we'll go from there. I could spend the rest of the day talking to you, but
Me too,
we'll go.
Jen.
Thank you. We'll talk a little bit about Storied End, final 5 questions, right? So there's a character in Havoc. His name is Celio, and he carries a notebook around and he's always sketching. And he has another notebook where he's keeping track of his grandmother's recipes, his abuela's recipes. What's your favorite recipe handed down in your family?
Oh boy, not really a family of cooks, but I guess maybe my grandmother's banana pudding.
Ooh.
Yeah, she was Southern. She's a Southern lady. So yeah, bananas and Nilla wafers.
Ooh, so good. That just brings back memories.
I know, right?
Right? Talked a little bit during the course of this conversation about the oral tradition of stories.
Mm-hmm.
What oral stories have been passed down to you? Is there one in particular?
Oh, there's so many. Okay, so my grandfather, his mother was full-blood Cherokee. So
Okay.
it's from my mother's side, my heritage, my native heritage, and he never learned to read or write, right? So I mean, we're talking a teeny tiny little, town in the, in deep in the Smoky Mountains. So we would I mean, I would spend all my summers growing up there, and we'd sit on his porch, and sometimes he would never say anything, never anything. But then something would come to him, and he would tell me a story. So really, and I mean, the best storyteller. Oh my God, him and my uncle, just complete full circle stories. And I think that's where I came, the love of storytelling is
Right.
embedded in the memory of those, particularly those, actually, my cousin, my uncle, and my grandfather.
It's
But in
terrific.
particular, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you one story.
When I was in grad school, I took a storytelling class. I didn't read the description closely enough. I didn't realize it was oral storytelling. And I can remember, having, to present a couple different times, but one of them was to present a story. And the story that I presented, and it's on the bookshelves back there, is The Rough-Faced Girl, which is the Native American telling of Cinderella.
Oh,
And
interesting.
the birch bark. Oh yeah, I absolutely loved it. And my niece was really little at the time. And so I can't tell you how many times I said the story to her on
Wow.
FaceTime or when we were together, but that there's a distinct difference writing to be read and then writing to be
Right.
read aloud or to tell the
So
story
true.
aloud. Pauses and the emphasis on particular words and pacing, it's an art. I did
And
okay
I
with
mean,
the class, but oof,
it's hard to
storytelling,
study
it's like,
though.
oh, this is like story time for like, yeah, 'cause I was on track to be a children's librarian and then veered off track. So
And that's why voicing for audiobooks is so important. I mean, I'm so picky. I'll listen to anything Will Patton reads, but there are a lot of narrators like, oh, I would put a beat in there, or I would have mentioned, so
yeah, there's a couple I'll search by name on an
yeah,
audiobook
right,
because I need to hear this particular narrator read it. So
right,
super
right.
special. As the new writer in residence,
Mhm.
congratulations.
Thank you.
What are you looking forward to most?
I love to mentor, new voices. Try to do my best to get them excited to actually either start writing something or to, most importantly, finish something. I mean, there are so many writers, 80%, I swear, writers, they'll come up with a great idea and they'll get close to it and then they give up because they come up with what they think is a better idea. It's like getting to when you can say, I have completed a first draft of an entire novel. I mean, fireworks should go off because
Heck
that
yeah.
is a huge accomplishment.
It is a
So
huge accomplishment.
it's huge. And whether it goes anywhere or not, it's like, I finished a novel. I had a concept, I had an idea, I followed through. I am a professional, I am a writer. So
Yeah,
that really, conjuring that excitement is that, you can do it, you just have to do it.
right. And you're so good and so kind to encourage and to provide thoughtful feedback. So
I love
those
it. I
people
love
that you
it.
will be mentoring are truly in luck, and they will finish for sure. Next question. If you could time travel, would you travel to the past or to the future?
Oh, I did the past. I don't ever want to do that again. I I don't know. I mean, I kind of like where I am right now. I mean, if that's an option, I would say I want to continue the journey that I'm on. I've worked so hard to get where I am. I mean, so hard. And to see things, over the last, I don't know, 5 years, you know, because of the journeys and the tribulations and the growth and the learning. Don't do that again. Oh my gosh, don't hook up with a person like that. Not hook up,
Yeah,
but you know what I mean.
right.
Don't get involved with a personality that is going to only suck you dry or drag you down. I think that all of that is in my past, and I have enough
Mhm.
reminders conjuring in my brain, as well as my husband, stop doing that.
Yes. Well, that's the
I
beauty, I
really,
think, of midlife
yeah,
is that we're to the point now where we're done with the obligatory
yeah,
things,
yeah,
that we can just say,
right.
yeah, sorry, yeah, I don't have
Yeah,
time for
we
that.
can we can say no.
We can say no. Exactly. Final question. What song would you always include on a road trip playlist?
Oh gosh, I mean, I've heard you ask this on your program before, and if it's a road trip, I'm going to be listening to an audiobook, but
By, by Will Wheaton.
yeah, by Will Patton.
Will
Um,
Patton, sorry.
but if it's music, I mean, I'm a Broadway,
Hmm,
musical nut. I love
this I
me to
did not
play.
know.
Oh my gosh. Um, but if you want a song, that would definitely be um, on repeat. I play two songs when I'm writing a lot, and so probably in the car as well. But um, Gethsemane from Jesus Christ Superstar,
Okay.
but it has to be the Ian Gillan version. Has to be the
Okay.
Ian Gillan version, or Finette, and that's from the off-Broadway revival of Jacques Brel is Alive and Well and Living in Paris,
Yes.
but only the Robert Cuccioli version. So
I had
I
no
have
idea
I have
that you loved
parameters.
musicals
Oh
as
my
much as you
gosh.
did.
That's kind of why I love to go to Thrillerfest. The Thrillerfest conference
Oh, could you go to
is
Broadway and
always
off
in New
Broadway?
York,
Yeah.
so we always do at least 3 shows when we're there for that conference. Yeah, we have. Oh,
No, I mean, there's nothing better, I think, than live music and live performance.
right. But it's probably the only way I would have been able to see Hamilton.
Yes.
It was a road tour. I think the second year was open,
Yeah.
but it was still great on Broadway. I was able to see
It
it about 5 years later.
was. I was impressed not only with all the singing and the storytelling, but the stage movement. I mean, how
Yeah,
quickly they, and graciously, is that even the right word? Just not very distractingly changed
right.
sets as they were
Yeah,
moving, and then the stage
right.
starts to move around, and
Yeah,
it's stunning when all of that comes together, and the fact that you have that as your background.
right. Well, yeah. And my husband and I are both stage technicians from when we first met back in the 80s. And let me tell you, I mean, we have so much fun, just watching the sets and just getting lost and completely, enmeshed in that again is just the smell of the theater is fantastic.
Yes, agreed. So a huge thank you to those of you listening, and to Deborah, thank you so very much for spending
Thank
time
you.
talking about Havoc
Oh,
and also what's coming next.
I've had a blast. Thank you, everybody.
And to find out
thank you
who else.
most of all, Jen. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're quite welcome. This is a dream right now. To find out who else is visiting, go to storytocount.com. This is Story to Count with Jen Jumba.